Hey everybody, welcome to this YouTube recording. I wanted to share some principles that have been on my mind specific to agriculture, ag businesses, farming and ranching, and share some principles that I believe are key and really essential in this time of transition and change. And right now in agriculture, we're facing some unique and pretty severe challenges. And so as I thought about what I could share, and I wanted to record this specifically for the Cam Kings group, the Grass-Fed Marketing Secrets, and the COD community. But I thought, I'm going to post it onto my YouTube channel because I think there are other people within the ag industry that are facing these challenges. I'm really passionate about grass finishing and the grass-fed movement, and I think it's great and it's wonderful. But whether you're in that industry or whether you're selling commodity products, these challenges are going to be something that if you are not currently facing, you are going to face. So my name is Jared Sorensen. My wife and I are third generation ranchers. We operate a ranch in northeastern Nevada. We've been blessed to step into a wonderful opportunity to work within a family business. And we are working hard to make this ranch truly regenerational so that every year it gets better, more productive, even through the drought years. Are we perfect at it? Absolutely not. We're learning as we go. But and we also want to ensure that that next generation has the opportunity to come back and participate in agriculture if they so choose, whether that be on our operation or stepping into another operation. We offer internships. We offer learning opportunities, classes. We're involved with the Savory Institute, and we do some on-site training. We're the parents of 9 children, and so we're really focused on and passionate about encouraging youth to become involved in agriculture, because that's really what makes ranching sustainable and regenerative, is having that ability for the next generation to step into agriculture. So that's a little bit about myself. As I jump into these threats that I see that are facing, they're not necessarily unique to our time. I mean, the nature of agriculture is there are always challenges, right? It's a tough industry. These are kind of universal, and they're not all of them are specific to agriculture, but that's what I can talk to from authority, because there are things that I've faced, each one of these things I've been through and understand them. And I also have a basic understanding of, what it takes to be able to overcome them and have a plan in place so that they don't destroy the business. They don't take it down. So the first threat, these are 6 D's and 2 A's that I see that are threats to ag businesses. So first of all, death. What are the statistics for death? How many people are going to die? Right? 100% of us, right? There's no getting out of this life without going through and stepping through that veil. But why is it a threat to our ranch or our farm? Well, because if we don't have a plan in place, then it puts those key decisions that we may think we have made in the hands of somebody else. So right now, your ranch probably isn't going to get eaten up by state taxes, but that could change. But do we know that who is going to take over management, say, if we're the owners and we are no longer able to fulfill that role? So death can be for ourselves as owners. It can be for key stakeholders in the business, key employees in the business. And we need to have a plan in place. What does that plan look like? It looks like a solid estate plan. And this is a place where I would pay for professional counsel, right? There's a lot of things that you can do on your own. This is not one of them, unless you're an estate attorney. And even then, I would seek for a second opinion. And looking for a good estate planning attorney, there's lots of them out there that understand agriculture and they understand business. They understand family legacy. We're blessed to have found a great attorney. And the reason that I like him is that he really buys into the principle of legacy. Also, I like him because he charges a flat fee base for his services when it comes to start making an LLC or, business entity, or creating an estate plan. And I think that's important. Don't go for the hourly rate, right? Most interview and come up with some questions about, what you're looking for in an estate planning attorney. Make sure that there's a relationship of trust with them. Pretty much every attorney will give you an hour for free as a consultation, and then they're going to charge you. They're going to charge you a lot. But that's money just very well spent. What are the key things that need to go into an estate plan? Again, I'm no professional on this, but what I see, what we have in our estate plan is that you have a will, a trust, a living will, and you have whatever supporting documents that you need that convey your will and your convictions to the successors in your business and in your estate, right? And so there are some things that you may maybe boilerplate things, but there might be some things that you want that are unique to you, that you want to be able to pass on to that next generation so that they understand the legacy that you've created and they can perpetuate that legacy. Ultimately, it's going to be out of our hands. But if we take the steps to be able to build a solid plan when there's not a crisis and when there's really not a need, that helps us to ensure that when that time comes, when it will, that plan will be able to be executed. Okay, so we see many times when the death of a key person in a business leads to the dissolvement of that business, and that doesn't need to happen, right? Maybe that's your estate plan. Maybe you want it to be sold or given to charity, and if you do, that's fine. Make sure that you communicate these things with the stakeholders in your business and to your heirs, to other people who have an interest in that business. And the best thing you can do is do that when you're alive, when you're sound-minded, so that there is understanding. It's sad to me to see how much bickering and discord and bitterness happens in family ranch. Are divided his retirement by going through this continually. So we're looking at our estate into it. The idea, anyway, that meets our needs. Okay, so that's the first. Second threat is disease. And we're in agriculture. First, I thought, well, maybe it's the disease of the livestock, but let's look a little bit deeper at what that meaning could be. And I want to talk specifically about disease within the human health aspect. Again, there are statistics that 1 in 2 people, 50% of the population in the US is going to have some form of cancer. Just look at your own family. I've had 1 sister and 2 brother-in-laws that have passed away from cancer. And I come from a big family, so that's not 50%. I've had others who have encountered cancer and they've overcome it. So that's just one instance. There's cancer. There's lots of other degenerative diseases that we could face. And why is that a threat to business, to our ag business? Well, because if we don't have a plan in place, including some type of perhaps disability insurance, some way to be able to mitigate if that does happen, it can be a huge burden that can be placed upon the business. And then also, if we are not able to fulfill our role as an owner or manager, do we have a plan in place for somebody else to be able to step into that? Say that if we are the victim of cancer, are we the ones, are we the weak link because we have all the knowledge and all the authority to be able to make management decisions, and we haven't effectively delegated that to other people, or have a plan in place so that somebody else can step into that? It's close to home because several years ago, I was diagnosed with Lyme's disease. It came on suddenly. Just in a matter of a few days, I got to the point where I did not have the strength to be able to button my shirt. It was crazy. I could barely walk. I couldn't run. If I tried to run, I looked like a spastic. And I was blessed to be able to find the help very quickly that I needed to be able to overcome that. And it took some time. It took a matter of years to completely overcome it. But it could have been very debilitating. And I remember in that time when, I was just in that weak state, thinking, I can lose my health. Like I can lose my physical strength, which I already had. But I said, please, God, don't take my mind from me. Because I knew that if I had my mind, I could continue to manage the ranch through the hands of somebody else, in which I had to do. I had to rely upon some key employees. Some family members stepped in. My wife definitely stepped in and helped during that time of rehabilitation. So have a plan in place. I didn't have disability insurance at the time. Now we do, but those kind of things are just safety nets, so that if and when that happens within your business, that your business can continue on. Number 3, so death, disease, diseases within ourselves, divorce. I hate to talk about this, but again, the statistics show that, I don't know, most statistics are made up, right? So who do you believe? But 1 in 2 people are going to be divorced. I don't know if that's really true, but again, look at your own family. In my wife's family, there are 2 instances of divorce. Again, from a big family, it's not 50%. In mine, there's 2. Again, a big family, it's not 50%, but it is going to happen to you. Hopefully not to you. And that's why we want to talk about these things, as be preventative. And so look at both sides of this, I guess, is if somebody in your business does not have a solid marriage relationship and they do happen to go through divorce, is that going to destroy your business, or is there a plan in place so that the business can be perpetuated even if that does happen, right? And just recognize that it is a threat. It's not something I would wish upon anyone. And it's not something that I necessarily plan for, like death and having an estate plan. I don't recommend that you have a divorce plan. I recommend that you have solid relationships and that you pay the price to work on those relationships, even if that means getting outside counsel, especially if that means getting outside counsel. The business can be sold and can fall apart, but the things that are of eternal significance is your marriage relationship, your family relationship. If the stresses of business tear that apart, it's not worth it, man. Sell the business. Preserve what's truly important. Now, granted, I know that there's unique circumstances. There are legitimate reasons for divorce. But remember why you got married and stick to that. So yes, it is a threat. I'm looking at it more from the preventative side rather than the whatever those agreements are that you sign before you get married. I'm not about that. I'm getting married for forever, and go at it with that intention in mind. But just realize that is, it's a significant threat. And I've personally seen people within our industry who have, they've suffered greatly. Their businesses have suffered because either they themselves have gone through divorce, or a key partner, family member, has gone through divorce, and now they have to take on business debt to be able to settle that. And, just make it clear that in my opinion, that the business does not need to settle that. The business is itself, the personal side, whatever assets you have and things those may need to be divided. And certainly child support needs to be part of that and everything, but be honest and fulfill your obligations. Okay, enough said about that. That one's kind of depressing. Speaking of depressing, the fourth one is depression. Man, that's a huge epidemic right now in the world. There's a lot of reasons for that. That's not necessarily the purpose of why this conversation of why there is such epidemic depression, but it's to have a plan in place so that if you or somebody else goes through depression, that you can understand like what to do so that the business can stay intact. It's something that we've dealt with within our business, and it is it's inherited on both sides of my family, and so I know firsthand how tough it can be to go through depression. Why is it such a threat to business, specific to ag business? Well, because as farmers and ranchers, we don't like to talk about our feelings. We don't like to admit that, hey, I've got some concerns here. We don't like to be seen as weak or unable to fulfill our roles and capacities. So a lot of times we just push forward and we try to keep moving through something that is challenging, right? If we break our leg, there's no shame in that. If we've got to sit in the house for a season because we're in a cast and, we can't go and operate the business, there's no shame in that. And I think any rancher, as hard as it may be, would be okay. Like, man, I have a cast. Everybody can see that. But when it comes to those unseen things, specifically mental and emotional illnesses, those are much harder because there is that stigma that you are weak. And let me tell you, you're not. It is a disease, just like cancer or just like a broken leg. And it oftentimes takes professional counsel and outside help to be able to heal. So if that's something that you're somebody that is dealing with, have lots of patience and understanding. And oftentimes it's just as hard for the person who is not going through depression, the spouse of the depressed person, as it is for the depressed person in a unique way. I'm not lessening what you go through in depression. Now, there's a whole cycle of depression, and that can lead to the bottom of that. The bottom of that cycle is suicide. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit because that is, again, something that is, it's rampant. It's big, not just in the ag industry, but throughout, society. And let me tell you, that's not the solution. Right? God put us on this earth and he allowed us to go through some of these challenges that we face, knowing that it was going to be hard, but also knowing that there would be a way to be able to overcome that. So with those emotional disorders and things, just realize, treat it like a disease. Get the help that you need. Seek for outside counsel. Talk about it. And don't be afraid to face it. Don't be afraid to face it. So there was a time in my business, just to be a little bit vulnerable here, when we had gone through a financial downturn, and it was just what is kind of an ongoing struggle. And I fell into what I would consider to be more situational depression. Like my genes, the heredity is there for depression, but I felt like this was not necessarily genetic. This was more situational because of an ongoing just stress and that is something that can bring on this situational depression. And so I was blessed to be part of a peer group, a group of fellow ranchers who I was able to confide in and to be able to share with them, hey, this is what I'm going through. And it was a kind of a revelatory experience when it came to me, like, you're not on top of your game because you're dealing with depression. And I felt like God's hand was in it. I had the support group that I needed. I was able to talk to my wife and my parents, who are stakeholders in the business, and some other key family members. And through counsel, through prayer, through a lot of support, and through a lot of hard work and change in diet and supplements, was something that I was able to get on top of. So do you need to have a plan for depression? Maybe not necessarily a plan, but it's something that you need to talk about, because it is going to affect you or your family. And I think I can just say with confidence that if it isn't currently an issue, it will be an issue. If you're going to be working with other people, depression will be an issue in your business, even if it's your employees. We've had employees that have dealt with depression, and they're not able to be on top of their game. And you need to have an understanding of like, okay, what is our policy for this? I have a tremendous amount of empathy for what people go through, and there is no judgment there on my part because I understand it firsthand. Okay, so that's number 4. So we've got death, disease, divorce, depression. Number 5 is debt. I am not adverse to debt, but debt can be a double-edged sword. It can be, there's good debt, there's bad debt. And what we're going to talk about is more of the bad debt, the debt that your assets cannot service, right? The nature of businesses is that there needs to be debt to grow. And so I'm not adverse to debt. I'm not saying never go into debt. I would like to be at the point where I am self-financed, but honestly, I'm not sure if that's the most prudent thing. Learn to manage debt and don't let debt manage you, right? We oftentimes, if we really think about it, we work more for our banker than we do for ourselves and our business and our legacy. And that's not right. Our bankers should be working for us. They should be the ones who are striving to earn the relationship. They should be striving to earn our services and the interest we pay, which is a lot of money, right? Every year as interest rates rise, it's increasing. And so we shouldn't think, and we shouldn't fall into that trap that, I'm working for the banker. And maybe we don't necessarily say that, but I have felt that, like, man, I've got to service this debt. I've got to service this interest. I've got to keep the bank happy. And you know what? Yes, we have obligations, right? But we need to serve ourselves and our legacy and our missions and our purpose and put that first. And I believe that when we have that clarity of what our mission and vision is, that we can attract the right people to us who buy into that. And that changes that whole relationship of, I don't know, the guilt and the shame of maybe not making payments on time, or, that they're going to find out that, hey, our balance sheet isn't as strong as it was this year as last year. We can just with confidence say, yeah, we face some challenging times, but this is what I'm doing about it. And if they don't like it, then just trust that there will be somebody else out there who can work with us. Now, each of these topics deserves like a whole day's discussion. And so this is just a very somewhat superficial and brief overview. But again, it's the idea that, okay, these are legitimate threats. So when it comes to debt, make sure that debt is supported by income producing assets. Yes, we've got operating loans and things like that keep us. But when we take out, those long-term liabilities, make sure that there is an asset that is income producing to be able to pay that. Now that kind of goes without saying, but let me just clarify what that means. If we're going to go and buy land that is extremely overpriced for its productive capabilities, that may not be the best decision to use debt for that purpose, right? If the activities on the ranch cannot make the mortgage payment, and we don't have a clear plan in place when we take out that debt, that is not a good decision, in my opinion. Right? We can't just go on hope and a prayer that things are going to work out. We need to be able to make sure, and that's hard to do in the industry, in the economy that we're in today. But so what can we do, right? And I'm not saying, I'm not a Dave Ramsey fan when it comes to his perspective on debt. I think he helps a lot of people on a personal side. But if we're going to grow a business and a legacy, debt can be a very constructive and useful tool to do that, but it needs to be structured right. And I'm more of a Robert Kiyosaki, who believes that debt is a tool, right? But it takes discipline, like everything. Okay, enough said about that. The sixth one is drought, and I would include like severe weather conditions in that. So right now in the West, we're going through like unprecedented drought. Old timers say they never remember it being this hot and dry for this long. That being said, we've been blessed recently with some rain, but we're certainly not out of the drought. The real threat to the business, obviously, can be the lack of income. But again, I think it's more of the stress that comes from something that seems to be outside of our control, like drought. Like it's not something that we wish for. It's not something that we brought on. So let me talk about two ways that we can mitigate drought. One of them is have a drought plan. When's the best time to write that drought plan? It's when it's raining. It's when you don't need it. And what does that drought plan include? That includes, in my opinion, a destocking plan. Like, when will we destock to match our forage supply and demand? Don't wait too long to destock. It's never a good idea. The land will suffer, and you'll be forced to make decisions that may not be the best decisions if you're waiting until necessity dictates that decision. So have that plan. And number two is build resiliency into your business, both economically and ecologically, so that when a drought does come along or severe weather condition comes along, that it doesn't take you down. How do you do that? Build the soil sponge. Build soil organic matter. How do you do that? Through proper management, holistic planned grazing, putting carbon back into the soil through management. Again, that deserves a whole nother topic. That's how you become resilient ecologically. Lots of diversity on the landscape helps you to become more resilient. Sometimes looking at multi-species, right? Sometimes the grass may not grow, but there's good browse. And so maybe cattle is not the best economic or ecological species to be able to support your operation. Maybe you need some diversity of species, sheep or goats. And then economically, it's to have reserves, right? Never run out of money. Bud Williams, one of my great mentors, taught that we manage three, and sometimes he would include a fourth thing. So it is livestock, money, grass, and the fourth one would be time. He said, you can never have too much grass, you can never have too much money, but you can't have too many cows. So if you have a reserve of grass and you have a reserve of money, you have options. And especially, when things are in turmoil. Right now, there's huge market swings. There's always undervalued livestock in the market. And if you have feed and money, you can capitalize on that. Okay, so that's drought and severe weather conditions. And then that drops us into the 2 A's, addictions. I'm just referring to my notes here. Addictions. Why is that a threat to business? Well, how many ranches have been lost to alcoholism? How many divorces have happened because of alcoholism? And that's just one form of addiction, right? That's maybe the most obvious. There's drug addictions. There's also pornography addictions, but there can be addictions that are harder to identify. And I think we all deal with them. They can be addictions to emotions, which basically all addictions are an addiction to an emotion. It's like the reason we drink is because it's how it makes us feel. The reason we look at pornography, it's because of how it makes us feel. It's those emotions, that's emotional high, the dopamine dump. We can be addicted to Facebook and to social media. We can be addicted to anger. We can be addicted to crisis, like living in that fight or flight mode. And that adrenaline, it is super addicting, right? And we find that we sabotage our success, or not necessarily our success per se, because sometimes people can be successful in fight or flight, but just realize what that's doing to your adrenal glands. If you're constantly dumping adrenaline into your system, it's going to wipe them out, and sooner or later you will crash. Right? I think it's just, you can't support that long term. So that's the threat of addictions, is that you are being controlled by something outside of yourself. Right? We can have food addictions. So what do we do to overcome that? One is recognize, okay, and confide. In church one day, a member of our congregation got up and he spoke and he says, "I'm an alcoholic." And I thought, what, who, you? I mean, this was a stalwart member of the church, but he knew through his training that he needed to confide in that. He hadn't had a drink in probably 30 years, but he knew that those tendencies were still there. That doesn't mean that that defined who he was. He's a very spiritual man, a great provider for his family, an excellent example in our community, and a God-fearing man. And I have a ton of respect for him, that he was able to confide that, hey, this is a weakness that I am dealing with, and he is dealing with it. So when it comes to addictions, it's to, number one, acknowledge that, hey, this is something that is going on with me. And then it's to seek for help. And that could be, again, professional counsel, definitely within your family, but don't expect your family to solve your problems for you, right? You take the lead. You take the lead. Or if you have somebody else who you recognize is dealing with addictions, have a ton of grace and patience and understanding, and encourage them to get the help that they need to be able to overcome that. And it is a threat. I mean, I don't, where business is lost because somebody is addicted to gaming or pornography or scrolling on social media. Maybe it's not seen as directly as alcoholism, but yes, it can happen if we're not able to be fulfilling the stewardships that we've been given, because something else is pulling at our time and our energy. We may not be able to maintain the business and the legacy that we want to. So it's a threat. And number 8 that goes along with that is allergies. And you might think, well, why are allergies a threat to business? Let me tell you, when I deal with seasonal allergies, I have since I was a little boy. I'm working on holistic ways to be able to overcome that and to conquer that. And I think I've made some pretty good strides, especially over this last year. But when you go out into this tall field of Timothy Haylikes in my background picture here, that's beautiful to me. But when I look at that and I think, oh man, if I had to ride through there and build an electric fence, all that pollen would be up in my face. Pretty soon my eyes would be watering, they'd get red and swollen, and I'd sneeze and my nose would run and I'd itch and I'd have a reaction to something that I'm allergic to. And so that's what allergies causes, and that as a reaction. Have you ever been in a situation when you've had to have one of those crucial conversations with somebody in your family or in your business, and you have a physiological reaction? It might be a shortness of breath, a tightness in your chest, brain fog, where you drop into that fight or flight mode. You're just, you're reactive. That is an allergic reaction to something that has triggered you. And so when it comes to allergies, it's just to be aware of what are those things that are triggering me and how is that reaction happening. Again, there are ways to be able to overcome those allergic reactions, whether it's physiological, to things like pollen or food, or whether it's allergies to the emotions, to the circumstances, to the situations that we might face. And so there's some tools and techniques that can help with that. A great mentor of mine named Tyler Watson, you can look him up, and he's got some methods that help specifically with allergies and with addictions. And I've been trained in that, can also help with that as well. So those are the 6 Ds, and I included drought in there. That's the 6th one that I wasn't going to, drought and severe weather. So let me go through them again. The 6 Ds are death, disease, divorce, depression, debt, and drought. And then the 2 A's are addictions and allergies. Bottom line, you have a legacy to fulfill. You have a mission. God's put you on this earth to be able to do that. If you choose to make agriculture a way of fulfilling that mission, I want to support and help you and applaud you in doing that. It's not an easy career path, but it is possible. Recognize that these are some threats that you, if you are not currently facing, you will face. You're probably, so just looking at this list right now in our business, death is something that we have faced. I mentioned disease. It's something that we're currently facing. People in our business whose health is not optimal. Divorce, we've not gone through that specifically within our business, but we're definitely building resilience in my wife and I, in our marriage, in our married children. Our second boy is about to be married, second oldest. Depression, we've dealt with that. We've dealt with the debt and being able to structure that. We're going through drought right now. We've dealt with different forms of addictions, both food and just addictive behavior, and definitely with allergies. And so of the 7 things right now, currently 6 of those are active things that we are dealing with within our business. And I would encourage you to be, gut level honest with yourself, with any and all of these things. Have this conversation with key stakeholders, reach out for help. With the business that we're starting, we realize that we not only want our ranch operation to be regenerational and to survive into that next generation and to thrive, we want to help other family businesses to also be able to thrive. So reach out for help. I may not be the expert in any one of these areas, but I feel like I've been blessed with some great people to be able to counsel with and to be able to point you in that direction. So thanks for taking time to listen. Remember those 8 challenges, and most importantly, have a plan in place. Come up with that clear vision of what you want your business to look like and drive for that. Remind yourself of that each day, multiple times throughout the day. When things are hard and when things are challenging, it's that vision that keeps us going. And as it says, without vision, people perish. So that's going to be what keeps us going. Thanks again for listening.